Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Orthodox Wanderer YouTube channel. Today is a very special episode for me, and I hope for you as well. Today, I sat down and spoke with Father the Archpriest Dionysi Poznaev. Father Dionysi, or Denis, as we say in English, is the priest of the Saints Peter and Paul Church in Hong Kong, China. Father Denis has been involved in missionary efforts in China for more than 25 years, and in our conversation shares his experiences, his what they have been doing, what they are doing, what they hope to do in the future. And I really emphasize that this is a special episode for me because Father Dennis is one of my biggest role models and someone I truly look up to and pray I can be, at least 5% of as good of a clergyman as he is. So without further ado, here is my talk with Father Dennis. Enjoy it as much as I do. And at the end of the video, Father Dennis explains how we could help him and his parish to further their missionary works. Here is my talk with Father Dennis. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my talk today with Father Dionysi from Hong Kong. Hello, Father Dennis. How are you today?
Hello, thank you for the invitation. I'm fine. Glad to be here.
I'm very, very excited to be able to speak to you. And I think, a lot of people have been eager to hear how Orthodoxy is doing in Asia and in particular, maybe Hong Kong and China. So I'm just super, super excited myself. So let's get right into it, Father. Let's just start about yourself and how did you end up in China? If you could maybe briefly or if you want to do it longer, it's up to you. But how did you end up in China? If you could tell us.
I had some kind of interest to Chinese culture and to China. Since my childhood, I like Chinese characters when I was very young, and we have several family friends who were prominent sinologists, maybe because of their influence. But at the same time, I had an idea to be a priest since my 13th. Finally, I found a way how to combine these two ministers, to be a priest and to do something in China for China, and to be involved in Chinese affairs. It was a missionary work, and I started to visit Beijing, started to learn Chinese in 90s, met many people who were related to story of Chinese Orthodox in 20th century, read several books, started to visit Beijing in 1994, and finally moved to Hong Kong in 2002. There will be already 20 years, 20 years ago. And settled down here to be missionary priest for Hong Kong and for mainland China.
Okay, so already during your seminary studies back home in Russia, you were somehow you decided or your wish was to go to China, yes?
Yes, it was my idea. Finally, my project, which I introduced to current patriarch, was Department of head of Department of External Church Relations, and he accepted my project and blessed me to work in this field, and we started this.
Okay, so it's wonderful. So just to make it clear, you do speak some Chinese, right?
Yes, yes, I do.
Okay, so that I think that's important for missionary work. So could you
Not
give us
Cantonese, not Cantonese, but Mandarin.
Mandarin? Yes, because there's different dialects, Cantonese, Mandarin, and I think there's even probably more in some other areas as well, different types. So, Father, could you give us maybe some brief history about Orthodoxy in China and Hong Kong, just like a brief overview uh, about missionary efforts in this great, huge country?
I would say that in the recent time, it's quite new time, history begins in the end of 17th century and related to the Chinese and Russian affairs. So China captured one fortress near the border, Albazino, and moved some Russian soldiers to Beijing, settled them in Beijing, and they start to live there for generations. keeping Orthodox faith. And because of their presence in Hong Kong, it was a reason, in Beijing, it was a reason to establish a Russian ecclesiastical mission in beginning of 18th century with the decision of Emperor Peter the Great and the Chinese Emperor Kanzi. And they started missionary work, but also were involved in international relations. So the purpose of existing and of this mission was double-sided: political, diplomatic, and also missionary. Finally, in the end of 19th century, they started to do pure missionary work, and it was more or less successful, but a relatively short period of time until time of Russian Revolution, Communist Revolution. So less than half century, but they already ordained several priests, translated a lot of liturgical texts into Chinese, and established the basis, at least the base of Orthodox mission. And after that, there was a period of waves of Russian immigrants who moved from Soviet Union to China, escaping from communists, and they somehow stopped this missionary work, and church life in China became more national oriented to serve Russian expatriates who settled down in China. However, in Shanghai and also in Beijing, missionary work continued in natural way because there were Chinese Orthodox priests and also Chinese believers who were minority in this church, but until 50s, when People's Republic of China were established, and Russian people start to move out of China to other countries, to the United States, to Australia, and some of them back to Soviet Union. And time for missionary work was not very convenient already. They had 10 years probably to change everything in church life, to become it more local, to ordain more priests, but in environment of Chinese communism and with a bad political, later on with bad political affairs between Soviet Union during Khrushchev time and Mao Zedong in China, finally Chinese church was institutionally destroyed. In Hong Kong, the parish was established in 1934, and it was immigrant parish completely until death of its first rector, Father Dmitry Uspensky, who passed away in 1970, buried here, and his wife and his daughter also. And we pretend to call him ancestor for our parish, pretend to continue this line of presence in Hong Kong and re-establish church activity with same church name, Apostle Saints Peter and Paul, re-established in 2003 after my settlement to Hong Kong. And now the parish is much more missionary oriented, and I think it's our main goal here.
Okay, so it seems that before establishment of communism in China, the Chinese government and the emperor, they were quite open to have Orthodox people in their land. Is this true?
Yes, they have some limits and of course some condition to presence, especially until end of 19th century. But generally speaking, policy of limitation and control for religious activities, something typical for China in period of empire and now in the period of Chinese communism, and short time of exception was in the first half of 20th century.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So you told me that the main focus of your parish now of Saints Peter and Paul in Hong Kong is missionary efforts. That your parish is engaging in such missionary efforts. If you could maybe perhaps give some examples of how such missionary work can look. If we perhaps start with Hong Kong first, how does such missionary work actually function in Hong Kong?
So we first of all need materials in Chinese. That means we work on translation, liturgical texts and catechetical and theological books addressed to various group of people, ordinary people, people who are just beginners in their interest, or a group which are quite academically advanced. We have to satisfy interests of different groups, especially in theological literature. And another complicated task is the translation of liturgical texts, which require a lot of efforts, a lot of sources. We place them on internet. It's now a very convenient tool for missionary work because people communicating using internet, especially in big cities like Hong Kong, people often don't want to socialize. They experience quite hard pressure from the megapolis and often prefer to stay alone in their homes, and quite welcome online activity, I would say. But of course, we have also offline activity. It's our church service, which we celebrate daily. And we try to celebrate parts in Chinese and also in English, and less in Slavonic, which is traditional for us.
So would you say that
sometimes we publishing books, so we do missionary activity on our website. We also hold some academic lectures from time to time, inviting visiting scholars to deliver courses of lectures in leading theological institutions of Hong Kong.
Yes, that's very nice. So would you say that how big percentage of your parish today in Hong Kong is made up of converts? Is it 50%? Is it less? Is it more?
I think 30 to 40% are local Chinese.
Okay, well that's wonderful. And how is the Hong Kong political environment for your activities? Because I know it has been quite okay since you came, but there's maybe been some change now, or is it still okay for you to be in Hong Kong?
It's very convenient, I would say. We still enjoy religious freedom here. Probably it may change because Beijing will influence and change Hong Kong system of law step by step to control more its tendency, which you can see quite clear, but still we operating quite free without any limitations.
Okay, that's good to hear. And if we switch our focus to mainland China, because as you said in the beginning, your activities is not only limited to Hong Kong, but it also expands, so to speak, to mainland China. In what way are you able to do missionary work in mainland China while being in Hong Kong? If you could maybe speak about some of those aspects of missionary work in China.
For these 20 years, we established unofficial communities in mainland China, in neighboring cities, Shenzhen and Guangzhou as well, and in North China in Dalian city. We also worked on establishing of parish under consulate in Shanghai and Russian embassy in Beijing, and we also work on recruiting of students to seminary studied in Russia, and two of them actually were ordained as a Chinese priests and officially recognized by the government, and they celebrate in official parishes, but somehow created not a network but a group of communities, unofficial and official, to celebrate regular services. And another task, of course, is distribution of books, which we're printing in Hong Kong and distributing in mainland China, now more in electronic format, because even sending mail from Hong Kong to China is now limited. We cannot say send religious books using ordinary post, ordinary mail service. So we switched more to electronic books, which still are accessible in mainland China.
Okay, so you said that, for instance, these two newly ordained priests who were accepted by the government, you speak, of course, of the Chinese government, yes, that they were accepted by them.
Yes.
So they are able to serve officially, but are they able to freely do missionary work, or they have to be very low?
Within the framework of their parishes, they are quite limited and, of course, controlled by controlling institutions.
Yes, yes. Well, at least they're there. So I know myself, I visited one of the churches in Beijing at the embassy, the Russian church at the Russian embassy. And when I spoke to the priest, he said that he obviously cannot do anything outside the boundaries of his own small community because it's very much controlled. So I would think it's the same with these Chinese priests.
No, they have their own place, the church in Mongolia and Harbin, and in the framework of their parishes, they can do a lot.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm actually happily surprised to hear about that. So that's actually good, wonderful. But generally, you would say that in mainland China, it's probably much more difficult than in Hong Kong, correct? To convey to do any missionary activities.
Yeah, indeed. It always was this way, and now it's still like this.
Yes, it's the same. It's the same. So I wanted to ask you just some practical questions about China and Orthodoxy. What would you say is like the general view of Chinese people? Let's start with Hong Kong. What is their view on Orthodoxy? Are they familiar at all with Orthodox faith, or are they ignorant? Are they curious? Like, what is their approach to Orthodoxy?
They're quite curious towards Orthodoxy because it's something new. It's marginal for them. They're new Catholic Church because Catholics are 7% of population of Hong Kong, and Catholic Church here is active. They know Anglican Church, also some other Protestant churches, but Orthodoxy, I think that for those people who start to study Orthodoxy, probably their view focusing on there is a localized national variant version of Christianity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I understand. So they're curious, yes. That's interesting. So I wanted to ask you. And of course, in mainland China, this was about Hong Kong. Is it the same in mainland China, or are people different there towards the Orthodox faith?
Generally speaking, it's the same, except of places where Orthodox Church were present for a long time, like Harbin or Xinjiang. But in Harbin and in Xinjiang, even Chinese authorities associate Orthodox Church with Russian ethnic minority, which is one of minorities in mainland China.
So they see it more as serving the minority and not so much, trying to convert them.
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. So, what do you think is what potential does Orthodoxy have to attract Asian people? What I mean by that is what specific in Orthodoxy do you think can actually appeal to Chinese people? Is there some aspect you think that could be more appealing to Chinese people than other Christian denominations?
I think that Orthodox worship is quite attractive. Church culture, icon painting, church singing, generally speaking, that's very attractive and important part for Chinese, because Chinese traditionally likes rituals. Of course, now Chinese people are quite globalized, westernized, but still they have some roots and some traditional approach to social order. And rituals is something important for Chinese, who are generally quite cultural people. So Orthodox worship is indeed attractive, very attractive to them. They like long services, they like church singing, church arts. It's maybe more emotional approach than intellectual, I would say, in this way.
Would you say it's comparable to the Japanese people? If we look at writings of Saint Nicholas of Japan, he spoke sometimes about this, but in the context of Japan, would you say there's a lot of similar things between the Chinese and Japanese in terms of this approach to Orthodoxy?
Yes, I would say I see a lot of similarity.
Yes. That's the feeling I got from visiting both Japan and China. That's definitely the feeling one gets. And do you yourself in your services or in your architecture or anything else, do you incorporate any Chinese cultural aspects which are obviously appropriate and are not heterodox? Do you incorporate them?
Yes, it's one of methods of inculturation, traditional for European approach to missionary work in China to be more localized. But we need to have a good balance because actually people here are looking from Christianity more universal sense than local. But Europeans quite often pretend to be localized through usage of local cultural strategies. But nowadays, uh, I think it's a little bit outdated.
Mhm.
So it's not point of our main interest. We use it because it's nice, it's unusual, which is also attractive. But I think it's a supplementary strategy.
Yes, I think I read about the Jesuits, the Roman Catholic Jesuits who came to China, I think 17th, 18th century. They did a lot of this, if I recall correctly, and it didn't always work, and sometimes it even led to some heresies because they would adopt too much of the local, both culture but also religion.
The people in China don't want to see a psychological effect. They want to see something new, unusual, exceptional. But if we offer to them something related to their ordinary life, they may be frustrated. So
Yes,
we shall not show to them ordinary life.
yes, that's a
We
very
shall
very
find good forms to show super ordinary life.
that's a very very good point, because I think often when we think about missionary work, we almost romanticize and think in these terms of let's adopt as much as we can to the local culture, but sometimes, like you say, maybe actually the opposite is necessary, for people to find that the difference is something actually better, so it's very interesting.
In fact, they're looking for Christianity, but local culture is not Christian culture, so they somehow try to stay away. But our big goal is, of course, to create a local Orthodox culture, which can combine many elements of universal senses and local expression. But it takes time and generations.
Yeah, it
It's
takes.
not simple goal.
Yeah, surely I think time is one of the things that my generation and those younger, it's very hard to understand that things can actually take time. We are brought up in an age where, well, when things should happen quickly, but I think when you speak about time and generations, it can be tens if not hundreds of years even, of such efforts.
It should be natural growth, not artificial. It should be natural growth.
Yeah.
Of course, we cultivate it, we work on it, but it takes time.
Yes. So would you say that the orthodoxy in China and Hong Kong, is it growing, or does it stay on the same level as it has been?
Slightly growing, very slightly, but it depends on efforts, and our efforts depends on our sources. We are limited in our sources, so that cannot expect big results in short time.
Yes. I will surely, before we end, you can tell some more like in a little while about how we could help, and I will put a link how people could help your parish to do better missionary work. We could do that at the end. And you mentioned that a few, not Russians, a few Chinese seminarians, they study in Russia. Are there many of them that do this, or is it only a few?
I think around 10, around 10 people admitted to seminary, and finally we have two graduated and ordained because of various reasons, mostly because of their personal reasons.
Okay. So when they go to seminary to Russia, they get like an approval from the Chinese state, right?
Uh, Not all of them. The picture is more complicated. For example, one of them come to Russia first without approval of Chinese government, then returned, got approval, and come second time to graduate finally.
Okay.
Not all of them were approved, so the situation is quite variative.
Yes, but they have all the resources to conduct. You have all the resources to conduct the liturgies and services in the local language, correct? Now.
Still, we don't have all texts translated into Chinese. We work on it.
Okay, but I suppose you have the liturgy already, right? I think this was the first.
Yes, of course, we have liturgy, we have horologion, we have Sunday Octolicos, we have partly translated services of 12 great feasts, but not all, not all.
Not all, yeah. It takes time and money. And you mentioned that in Hong Kong you celebrate both in Chinese and English and some Slavonic, and obviously for those that know Hong Kong know that it's a very or at least it was before the pandemic, a very multicultural city with many people coming from all over the world. Have you had any converts who are not Russian, not Chinese, but simply for perhaps just visitors to Hong Kong who work there? Have you had such converts?
Yes, we have. In last year, we have French family which moved from Paris and worked here in Hong Kong for 1 year. Unfortunately, they moved to the United States, but it's a very good family. But because of crisis of their work, the company relocated them to the United States.
Yes, well, because I
Yes, we
think
also
that
have Armenian people here and Serbian people here who ask to baptize their kids from time to time. Also,
so
kids from mixed couples. Yeah.
so the other Orthodox faithful in Hong Kong would usually come to your church, like Serbs and Romanians and stuff like that. Yes.
Yes, but we have also Church of Ecumenical Patriarchate here, and I think that most American people visiting that church.
Okay, I see.
But we have some Europeans, especially Francophones or Russian French families or families of Russian white immigrants to France.
Mhm.
So we are quite Francophone oriented because I think even French is more spread in the parish than English. English is a common language, of course, but we have more French native speakers
Oh,
among
that's
parish members.
that's very interesting. That's actually very unexpected for a place like Hong Kong. So at least for
I
us
have
who
a
are not
lot of
there.
I have a lot of French people here in Hong Kong, maybe not less than 50,000.
Oh, yeah. Well, you should try to convert all of them.
Okay,
maybe do liturgy in French or something. Of course.
almost ready.
Yeah. No. Jokes aside. But no. I think that Hong Kong is a very having visited you, as you remember, it's a very interesting place, and especially this part about so many different people in one place. Which I think gives your parish very unique characteristics of being a missionary for the Chinese, but also a little bit missionary for Western people who end up in Asia. It's a very dynamic situation, I think, for you.
Yeah, that's right. It's natural goal and natural ministry for our service, and also in the same situation we see Russian expatriates who are living here, and most of them are not religious at all.
Yeah.
So I think that now we have more Chinese people in our parish than Russian.
Oh wow, that's not expected. So yeah, so I think it's your parish is really doing mission to all the people, like Christ said, to go out to all the people. So I think it's a very wonderful. So Father, just before we end, perhaps you could just briefly tell us what your parish needs mostly help with, and then I will put the link to your website under this video, and those who have the means could perhaps help you. So if you could just tell what such help would go to and why you need it.
Okay, I think that our main need is continue to maintain place for service. We have a mortgage for our church premises, and so Hong Kong is one of most expensive city in the property in the world. Still, we have repay our mortgage, and it's out of our capability actually, and ask for everyone of friends and supporters from around the world to contribute to this goal. Another thing is our translation projects. We work on right now. We work on the book of my elder by Saint Joseph Isihast in cooperation with monastery in Arizona. We continue to work on translation of liturgical texts, particularly 12 great feasts. And it takes, of course, time and efforts of our translators, to whom I shall pay. So using this opportunity, I also would like to introduce our applications for iPhone and Android, Orthodox calendar in English, Chinese, and Slavonic. It's quite popular, in fact, in Russia, but also in America. We have a lot of users who downloaded these applications, and using this opportunity, I would like to introduce them to you.
And I will make sure to put the link to the application under this video, yeah, and also the link to your website where people could help out and donate in any way possible. And if our listeners could spread the word, because really I have visited Father Denis parish myself, and I know what good work he and his people are doing. So any help is really crucial to continue this effort in a very, we must say, hostile environment, because prices are high to live. Chinese government maybe don't like it. It's a very complicated situation. So any help from anyone will be very, very helpful. And if you cannot help, please pray for Father Dionysi and his parish. That yes, always helps.
And just keep in mind that if you are traveling around the world and visiting Hong Kong, there is a place to visit to pray in Orthodox Church.
Yes, and it's truly a beautiful church. It's on the 12th floor in a high building, very unusual. But once you go in there, it's actually very, very cozy and beautiful. So I can guarantee. Okay, Father. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your questions.
And thank you for all your efforts that you do for the church. We will all be praying for you, and hopefully I'll see you soon, Father.